Good Friday afternoon. Just down to Kyle and myself. If those of you on the Knucklehead message board know about Brian's daughter's health situation, so it's just we're down to, and actually she's doing okay, don't worry. But Brian, we're going to live without Brian barely for a little bit longer.
And we actually do have contingency plans for this show,
yeah.
Unlike some other features that we have on the website.
If the host goes into a coughing spree or has had too much to drink the night before or something like that.
We've worked those up.
All right, you are watching Golden Black Live, whether you like it or not. Well, I guess it's a choice, and that's a good thing. Today, a very good show today. Jerry Palm will be joining us in a matter of minutes. RPI guru, bracketologist, whatever term you wanted. He will, and a Purdue graduate, and he will try to. He will have nothing to do with Purdue getting in the NCAA tournament, but he will tell us where the Boilermakers, the men's team, stands. And we also were talking whether he does women's brackets still too. And of course, Boilermaker women have a huge game Sunday afternoon, 5 o'clock at Ohio State. Then, of course, at 2:20 we'll have Paul Ganella, Purdue's Director of Player Personnel, and he is a recruiting guru, and we'll be talking, he can at least now for the first time, talk officially about the class of 2012, and we'll look at the class of 2013 and what the strategy might be for the Boilermaker football program. And then at 2:40, Gary Danielson from CBS Sports, and most recently a member of the Purdue Hall of Fame, or he's going to be inducted on April 14th, and we'll talk to Gary about that. Kyle, I'll let you say something. What do you want to say for yourself before I go into our litany? Brian was giving me some grief on boiling over about that. But no, Kyle, really an interesting week with Purdue sports. It always is, and now we're getting to tournament talk and time.
Well, big games this weekend for both programs, I think. I mean, this is sort of, I don't know if you can officially call it an elimination game or not, but it seems like the loser is going to have a really uphill battle to get back to the NCAA tournament between Purdue and Northwestern on Sunday. And for the women, I mean, an opportunity here with a game at Ohio State that if you win this one, you stay a game clear of the field. And I think if you look at the remaining schedule, Purdue has the most difficult of those schedules, but there are some other opportunities for Nebraska and Ohio State and even Penn State, who's sort of lurking there right on the outskirts to get back into things. But, you know, it's a huge game, a huge opportunity for Purdue this weekend.
Of course, on the women's side, Ohio State and Nebraska both lose last night, so that makes things interesting as well. And for those of you first time watching, you can email us or text us your questions. You can also chat amongst yourselves, and Patsy will pick them off the board and leave them for you. So or leave them for us, I should say, and we will ask them. And also, you can click on our sponsors, and of course, we're thankful for them. Hilton Garden Inn in West Lafayette's Wabash Landing. When tomorrow's a big day, State HGI tonight. State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Call him at 765-743-9595 or visit him on the web at trentismyagent.com. And, of course, Follett's Purdue stores, a game day tradition since 1945, the official outfitters of Purdue Athletics. And finally, West Point Steakhouse is a family-owned and operated quality restaurant. We wouldn't have the restaurant on here if they weren't quality. Known for hand-cut premium quality, choice steaks, and just a short dive from Ross-Ade Stadium or Mackey Arena. All right, Jerry Palm, are you there?
Yes. Hey, how's it going?
God, I'm glad we don't have to pay you every time we have you on the show. We promised not to have you on weekly because I know you're too busy heading into the tournament. But we did think that obviously Jerry, one of the preeminent national experts on RPI, and we talked to him a lot during the BCS time about where the Boilermakers might end up in football terms, but now obviously turning to basketball. Very interesting time and a challenging time for the men's team, but a big game certainly Sunday from an RPI standpoint when Purdue takes on Northwestern.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just RPI. You know, this is a really important stretch in Purdue's schedule coming up. If they're going to make the NCAA tournament, they've got 3 games out of the next 4 at home. The 3 of those games are against other tournament contenders, Northwestern first, and then you got to go to Illinois. You have Michigan State at home. And you also have Nebraska thrown in there as well. Purdue has got to win, I think, at least 3 of these next 4 games if they're going to make the NCAA tournament. It's really going to be hard if they don't play well during this stretch of their schedule. And, you know, and it's not going to be easy because, you know, Illinois is desperate too. And Michigan State maybe even eyeing a number 1 seed at some point. So, you know, this is not an easy stretch. And frankly, Purdue's been terrible at home. almost better on the road than at home.
Yeah.
So it's vital that Purdue have a good 2 weeks right now.
Jerry, is 20 wins still the magic number, or is that sort of
It never
changed?
was the magic number. 20 wins has never meant anything. It didn't mean anything when I started doing this in the mid-'90s, and now the teams are playing 33-some games. It doesn't mean anything now. It's not the number of wins, it's who you beat and who beats you.
And you look at Purdue right now, and the Boilermakers sit where in the RPI, and also I know Northwestern still was in the mid-30s or 37th. I thought going into last night's blowout win over Iowa. That's what people forget, that Northwestern will be a top 50 victory for Purdue, a second one if they can beat them.
Purdue's already got 4 top 50 victories, actually. They haven't beaten anybody who I think was in the poll, but I don't care about the poll. But for Purdue, it's Purdue's around 60, give or take. I think they're in the high 50s. They've been fluctuating around 60 in the RPI the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and what I meant to say is that it would be their second win over Northwestern, who has been in the top 40, or top 50. So you look at this with no magic number for victories. How do you look? I mean, do you see? And again, there's no magic number for how many teams they take from conferences either. But Purdue, the Big Ten's never had more than 7. But could this be a year where they have 8 or 9?
Yes, it is. And it depends on what other teams do. It also depends on how some of these teams at the bottom of that pile, Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, even Illinois, finish their season. It's open for anybody. I mean, we talked about Purdue's schedule coming up the next couple of weeks. Illinois' schedule is ridiculous. Starting last night with the game in Indiana, they have 4 of their next 5 on the road, and the home game is Purdue, sandwiched in the middle of that. But they're playing the Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State on the road, Nebraska on the road. You could be a good team and lose all 5 of those games. So, for Illinois, they're losing 4 out of 5 going into that stretch of their schedule. So, Illinois' tournament fate isn't secure either, and really, for Purdue though, the thing that they need is quality wins, because their record against teams in the top 50 and top 100 of the RPI is not that great. Below 500, they've got some nice wins. They picked some up out of conference too, which has really helped. I mean, Miami's hot streak here lately, their resurgence is really helping Purdue, but you can't really count on that. You got to go out and get them yourself, and for Purdue, that's why this part of their schedule is so important, because they have so many games at home.
If Purdue gets in, Jerry, are they looking at like a 10 to 12 type seed? And I think some people would probably prefer being in that area than being in that dreaded 8-9 game, right?
Yeah, right. Sure. Yes, I would say the way they're playing, if the tournament started today, I have them in the bracket I did today as an 11. So that's one of the last 7 or 8 teams in the bracket. I actually have Minnesota in one of the play-in games. So, Purdue still has a little bit of an edge on Northwestern and Minnesota within the league, I think, in part because beating both teams on the road, but also in part because of what they did out of conference. But they can go away Sunday. I mean, they lose at home to Northwestern on Sunday, and maybe now you're behind Northwestern instead of ahead of them.
You look at that, and what games, you talk about the Murray States, who had lost for the first time last night, Middle Tennessee State, some of those teams out there. What are some of the mid-major teams that you have to be watching for if you're a Purdue fan? I know it's still 6 weeks earlier than you need to be stressing over this stuff to some extent,
4,
except
anyway.
for you. Yeah, at least 4. But what are some of the mid-major teams that Purdue better hope? Teams like Purdue and Minnesota, at least where they sit right now, better hope stay on the up end of their conference tournaments.
Yeah, I would start with teams like Creighton and Wichita State. You would want one of those teams to win the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. You would want St. Mary's or Gonzaga to win the West Coast Conference and not have someone like BYU or Loyola Marymount step up and win that tournament. I'm not as worried about teams like Middle Tennessee and Long Beach and Oral Roberts. Their at-large chances are pretty slim if they take a loss in their conference tournament. But those are probably some of the higher-rated teams that would be seated in a bracket near where Purdue is right now. But, yeah, Murray State, you definitely want them to win the Ohio Valley because they're probably getting an at-large anyway. So teams like that, that are already at-large quality, you want to win their conference tournament so that's when bids get stolen. It's not when teams like, Cleveland State loses. It's when teams like, Creighton that are already borderline top 25 teams lose. At least you don't have to worry about Harvard. They don't have a conference tournament.
Yeah, there you go. And you did draw rave reviews on Knucklehead Central today because everybody that analyzed your 11 seed Purdue had Purdue going to the Final Four because it looked like an easy bracket and Baylor's in there.
Who did I put us up against? Because to be honest with you, I don't look at the matchups. I throw the teams in the bracket. Who do I don't even know who our first game is.
That's a good. You shouldn't be asking us questions and lead us to heading to our iPad. I don't know. We'll come up with that answer before long. The 6th seed. Maybe somebody out there that is firing in questions.
By the way, for people who think, by the way, that the committee looks at matchups and tries to put these sexy matchups together when they're doing a bracket, that's an indication right there. I'm following their process. I don't have time to look at matchups. I get in a bracket, make sure you're following the rules, and then get the bracket posted so that people can look at it. And the committee goes through the same process. They give themselves about a half an hour to do a bracket. They don't have time to put Purdue against Southern Illinois or whoever, that they think might be an attractive matchup for whatever reason. There's no time for that.
Yeah, and I think that's what will be an interesting thing to play out here in terms of that. In terms of early look at seeds among the Big Ten teams, obviously Ohio State's got a beat on a number 1 seed. You said Michigan State wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility. Where do you see, and then Indiana and Michigan, the conventional wisdom kind of putting them near the top. Where do you see those teams being seeded, at least at this early date?
Yeah, right. Ohio State is pushing for a 1, Michigan State's in a 2 to 3 range, and then Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan are really all about the same, and they're kind of in that 4 to 6 range right now, depending on, week to week. But they're in what I would call like the bottom half of the top 25. That's the part of the bracket that I would expect to find Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan in at this point, and then so that's the top 5, and then Illinois, Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, just fighting to stay in the bracket.
Yeah. Jerry, you have Purdue as an 11 seed versus number 6 seed Virginia in the second round.
Oh, yeah, like Tony Bennett hasn't tortured us enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Playing either 14 seed Nevada or 3 seed San Diego State in the second round.
Oh, yeah, that is a pretty sweet draw, actually.
Yeah, all you got to do is run
into me to do that.
All you got to do is run into Syracuse at the end, a piece of cake. So, from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem for another day.
Are you still doing women's brackets at all or looking at that
I'm
tournament?
not. I'm sorry. I had to give that up this year. It just took up too much of my time, and I was serving too many masters and didn't really feel like I could do a good job with it.
What is the hardest thing as you look at the last few weeks? What is the thing that just takes you the longest to get this ready or get this evaluated as you put this together?
It's always the last, say, 8 or 9 teams in the at-large pool because there's so much inconsistency in performance among those teams. That's why they're in that part of the bracket. And, you're always trying to figure out, well, this team has good wins, but they've got a couple of stupid losses, and this team hasn't beaten anybody, but they don't really have any bad losses. I mean, that's kind of like Northwestern, really, is that, Northwestern, their worst loss was Purdue. And, they've got a bunch of them, but, they're losing to good teams, but they don't really have the high number of quality wins that you would think that it would take to get in the field. And so it's trying to figure out, how to distinguish teams that have been inconsistent all year and why one should get in and another should.
One last question, and then for me at least, and that is, is there any such thing as, and I think I know the answer before I ask it, style points, losing to Ohio State at 3-3, at least from a computer standpoint or from a math standpoint may not mean anything, but does that hold any weight when the guys are sitting around the table on Sunday afternoon trying to get this thing figured out on March the 10th or the 11th or whatever date it is?
I would say that kind of probably varies from team to team. There's no such thing really as a good loss. Some may be better than others, but they're all bad. That was a day where Purdue looked like an NCAA tournament team,
yeah.
Even though they lost the game. And so that is good. The problem is that, it's again, the consistency. They do that, but then they lose at home to Indiana. If you give that kind of effort in your home games, you beat Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana.
Yeah.
So, it's important to look like an NCAA tournament team when you play, when the committee's watching. It's important to do that away from home. So that was good in that sense, but it would have been far, far, far better to actually win the game.
This year, Jerry, are teams going to be able to play their way into or out of the NCAA tournament based on the Big Ten tournament?
It could come down to that. I mean, if we still don't have a lot of separation, especially among those teams at the bottom, that's one more chance perhaps for some of those teams to even play each other or pick up quality wins and distinguish themselves. Also, they're not just competing among themselves, but they're competing among teams, in other parts of the country in different conferences. So, the conference tournament games don't get any more weight than any other game, but it is a last chance to make a positive impression on the committee if you need to.
All right, Jerry. Hey, thank you very much. Like I said, we'll use up another token or two as we get closer to the second Saturday in March, or excuse me, second Sunday in March, which will be, of course, Selection Sunday. Jerry, thanks again. I want to know your sleep. We're going to graph your sleep schedule as you get closer. But Jerry, thanks so much for taking the time, and we'll look forward, hopefully, to seeing you in person down here soon. But also having you on the show as we get closer. And let's hope, from a Purdue perspective, you hope that we're still talking about this here a few weeks down the road. So be safe. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road, and we will take a short break on Gold and Black Live and visit with Paul Ganella, Purdue's director of player personnel.
He's hoping they perform well.
And he's guaranteeing they're performing well by the great recruiting class coming in. We'll look forward to talking to Paul in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.
Just one night. One team victorious. The story behind the score. The rivalries. The big plays. From the sidelines to you. On the air, online. Are you ready for the frenzy? Friday Night Frenzy. High school football from where you live.
Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts, League and Champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous, simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline, worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's, Purdue pride, a Purdue tradition, 17 game day locations.
West Point Steakhouse is a family-owned restaurant known for premium quality steaks. Open for dinner Thursday through Saturday. Stop by for the Thursday night prime rib special or Friday and Saturday night specials like pasta and seafood. Be sure to come and enjoy all the food and fun at West Point Steakhouse.
You can now get a quote or buy car insurance 24 hours a day. Call me, State Farm Agent Trent Johnson, at 743-9595 and see how much money you can save today.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
When you see it happen, report it. Send us your news stories, photos, and videos with our Report It feature. It's easy with WLFI.com and the WLFI smartphone app. With a few simple clicks, you can send videos and photos of breaking news coverage. See your submissions on air as part of our broadcast or online in the Report It gallery. WLFI.com. Always mobile, always connected.
No wardrobe malfunctions Come on. here. It's segment 2, Golden Black Live. We're joined by Paul Ganella, and we don't want his correct title, which Kyle got correctly. So the thing, so we can say it again. But you're obviously director of player personnel at Purdue, but have had a very, very busy time. We had you on here a few weeks ago to talk about the class of 2012. We're going to also talk about the class of 2013. Maybe non-specifics, but welcome to the show, and we're glad you're here.
Well, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it, and looking forward to it.
And Brian's not even here to pester. You know, he is not a Giants fan, but the Super Bowl. I was thinking about you in those last minutes for the Pats. Still, no shame in the job that they did. Still think of I know. And the one thing I found interesting about the game. Many things I found interesting is that they assumed that Wes Welker's catch should have been an absolute deal, and I don't know that was as easy. Should he have caught the ball?
Well, I think he should have caught the ball, hit him in the hands.
Okay.
You know?
Giselle would have caught it.
But it was a difficult catch. But I think if you look back in any football game that you lose by the short amount of points, they had opportunity to pick up 3 fumbles and they didn't, and they took a safety first play of the game, and there were other things throughout the game. I know 81 dropped a few passes, and so there were a bunch of things that led up to that making it as big as a play as it was, you know. So, but they had a good year, and you know, I think they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl again next year. So in Vegas. So I think that it shows what, you know, they're pretty deep.
That quarterback's not too bad, who they have, that's for sure. All right, we're going to talk recruiting here, and that's really why we have you here. Class of 2012, one of the best classes, the best class at Purdue, at least on paper. We all know it's on paper, but from the Rivals.com rankings on down, this is being looked at as a major upgrade for Purdue's class. How many nervous moments did you have down the stretch? It was as much a case, from what we can gather, and what Coach Danny Hope said at the end too. Is, you know, you had to keep guys in the boat down to the very end. Was that any more than usual this year in your experience, or kind of the same?
You know, great group. I mentioned before we had a great group of guys, and you know, the kids that we had or have, you know, in the signing class, I mean, they kept their word, and in some of them we had to, you know, fight towards the end. But as a whole, it was just a great group to deal with, and they really stuck with us. And you know, of course, at the end, you got to, you know, make a big push. But this was one of the times in my career that we really didn't lose anybody on signing day, and there was no real big surprises because of the work we had done up to that point.
Yeah, Danny Hope's given you some credit, obviously, you know, for helping to organize the recruiting of this group. Just what, from your perspective, what happened here over the last year that, you know, allowed Purdue to get into the right places and end up getting, you know, guys that assembled a, you know, top 35
Well,
class?
our office is basically identify, and the coaches evaluate. But we, you know, not knowing how they did things before I got here, you know, obviously I wasn't here, but I had a lot of good ideas, and Danny allowed me to do my thing, and you know, they took to it, and I sort of spread it off to some stuff that I hadn't done because of some things that were going on in a positive way. So we sort of built on some things I'd done in the past, and you know, the entire staff was great with the ideas and the things that we were doing to promote the university and to get our name out there, and obviously we were in areas that Purdue really doesn't normally go to. So we were really successful at identifying in these other areas, and then once we were able to see some interest on their part, you know, we got either a position coach or a coordinator or the head coach involved, you know, to really do the recruiting.
Yeah, depending on how you count it, and we've been counting it different ways in the office, it's 14 different states they really come from, and depending on how you classify Carlos Carvajal. But we kind of keep track of these things, believe it or not, Paul, and that I don't think we've ever come up with a class where Purdue's had 14 guys from 14 different states. First guy from, I think, at least in '66, from Arkansas, and then of course first guys since the late '60s from Carolina. Again, places that, you know, is that a case of from an evaluation standpoint, you know, or not, or I mean from from a location standpoint and locating prospects, hey, you know, you have contacts there, you go send guys to look at them, or how does that typically go work, where you get it into Little Rock, Arkansas to get a player?
Again, from our office, we're going to locate guys that we're going to locate, and doesn't matter where they're from.
Yeah.
You know, and then we're going to get the evaluation through the process, through our how we do it as a staff, and then once our head coach gives a yay or nay, then we're going to, you know, I guess it's called doing a little fishing.
Yeah.
And so we'll do some fishing and find out if, you know, there's some return interest, and when there is return interest, then we're going to, you know, do what we do, and we just did a great job of going out, you know, the way we went after them, and we got, and Coach said in his interviews that we got a lot of these guys came on their own time and own dime to come visit us, and the organization of those unofficial visits was very important too, because you really only get one shot when they get to campus to make an impression. So that initial impression is a very big one, and who they're talking to, and making sure you know about them as well. You know about them, their family, what they want to study, kind of music they like, you know, what kind of people they are. So when they interact with our team and people on campus, that they know what they're all about as well. So we try to put them with similar people, and it worked out really good.
I mean, it seems like, you know, I've talked to you before, it seems like you've done a pretty good job of doing the history on people, and you know, realizing what their interests are, and when they get here to campus, putting them with the, you know, correct professor, or you know, showing them the correct spot on campus or whatever. And I mean, just how much work goes into sort of gathering background on guys so you know what they're interested in.
Hours and hours of Facebook, you know, private messaging was like an email, and they're on it all the time. But we take the time, and you know, there are times when I'm at home where a California kid shoots me a message at, you know, midnight his time, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning here, you know. Now, I usually don't get up for it, but something, you know, when I get up in the morning and look at my phone, I have to respond, because if I don't, he might have sent 3 or 4 or 5 messages to other coaches. So we did a great job of keeping up with that, and talking to a lot of kids, because we were recruiting a big pool, and then, you know, obviously it got down to the 26, you know, we did sign. So, but there is, it's a lot, it is a lot of work, it's a lot of time. And in the meantime with it, Coach talked about as well in his interview was the character and the grades that we had. And so, you know, in all these ratings, we really don't give the Wonderlic test. You know, so we have to find out, we have to find out what these kids are all about on our own. You can find out a lot about a transcript, you know. Grades, and sometimes grades don't tell the story. Maybe it's tardies and absences. And even then, if you do some more digging, you know, there could be a situation where the kid don't have rides and you can't get to school. Or, so depending on, you know, you're going to keep digging. You're more, you know, our coaches will maybe talk to teachers if that's the case. We'll keep going down the line until we, you know, find out what we need to find out, you know, so.
You're not out there evaluating, obviously, but you get to know the guys. Just from your perspective, who do you like out there in the class?
You know, this class they're all great. I couldn't even single out one, you know, because they all wanted to be here. They all could have went somewhere else, and a lot of these kids could have went to some really good schools. You know, we beat just kids on just about every conference, and some big schools, you know, some top 10 schools we beat kids on. So, you know, we got with kids that wanted to be here and want an education, you know, and want to be in a safe place. And Purdue really, and a lot of the parents are really impressed with, you know, what the school had to offer academically, socially, and then just the area as well.
We look at one of the intriguing prospects that came in late. Maybe the quote-unquote only surprise from our perspective was Joey Warburg, who had committed initially to Illinois. But and the more that we've looked into him, and I know Brian called and talked to some folks about him, very interesting prospect. But an example of a guy that it's not that you know, that naturally. Other schools were looking at him for other positions, but you have to evaluate him and put him in the right position in the right place.
Gary Nord did a great job, and Sean Clark. Gary has some relationships down there. He has for a long time, and he stayed with him, you know. And then all of a sudden, this is why you recruit to the end. You would ask that question. I think someone asked that question to me last time. Are you still going to recruit hard, or you recruit to the end because you never know? You know, you never know what happens. We had a spot, and then, that deal happened with Illinois, and he opened it back up, and they came on their visit and really took to the place and to the team and to the coaching staff. So
that dude's a 260-pound champion water skier.
I know.
Yeah. There's
pretty wild, huh?
he's very athletic. No doubt. The coaches watched him as a staff, and they came out of there saying we could not go on him. So.
Now you get to in the world of the internet, there are a few secrets for the kids that are looking. They can tell pretty much how classes are shaping up, and if they subscribe to their internet, to whatever one they want to subscribe to, they can tell. How do you get 4 quarterbacks in a class? Even though I know that some others may go into other positions, but how big of a challenge is that to convince guys that, hey, we're going to find a place for you at Purdue, and yeah, we may give you a shot to do, and I'm using quarterback as an example, but as a place where you're going to get your chance, but we're here to help you only get through school, but also play somewhere on the football field.
Each one of them, they're competitors.
Yeah.
So in each one of their minds, they're going to be the starter here, and so that's really how it ended up working out. And they're all good football minds, but they're all pretty good students as well. So it's amazing how it works out sometimes, but I think that. It's important too, because competition within the team is a real good way to get everybody to come out to practice and compete every day. Because if they miss a day, someone else is going to take they're going to take their spot. So I think it'll be a great thing.
Good question here from Cheesy Beef. We always like it when Cheesy Beef chimes in, but just wants to know what social media has done to recruiting on Facebook and Twitter. You mentioned Facebook earlier, but how has it changed, and has it made it in some ways easier, but in some ways more difficult too, because I would imagine there's certain rules you have to follow, or something.
There's rules. The rules aren't difficult to follow with these, especially with Facebook and stuff. I mean, it's just really just using the email portion of it.
Yeah.
It helps because they're able to see your page, you're able to see theirs, so you can sort of learn about them, and their friends and family and stuff on those. But the amount of time is the one thing that, every time something's created, it's just not there for you to, we'll use Facebook. But the time it takes to actually, use the technology and the social media is the kicker. And for the coaches, it's tough. I can imagine years ago they didn't have my position.
Right.
And so, but recruiting wasn't as, it's different now than it was back 10 years ago. But slowly but surely, these coaches, full-time coaches, time, they used to have a vacation. They used to be able to spend time with their families. They used to, and that's slowly but surely disappearing because you have to respond.
Right.
I call it as you open up a can of worms. If you don't tend to it, then,
So you've got a Facebook, you've got a Twitter, you're on Foursquare, you're on LinkedIn, you're on MySpace, you're on
we got
Google
the
Plus.
Skype. We got Skype.
God, you've named a couple I don't even know about. Google Plus, I haven't tried that yet.
So there's a little everything. Right?
No, there really is, and the kids are into it. They're gonna any way that they can be in front of all their friends and family, and we do it too as adults. Be able to reach out to people that you haven't. But it's actually a good tool. It's a tool that. To think about years ago, there wasn't even cell phones, back in the 80s. So there wasn't emails. So how did they get a hold,
Carrier
those house phone, sometimes those are busy. There was no call waiting back then. So the time we can spend with them, I mean, and I think that you see with the signees we have, the time that was spent, because there are a lot of good, smart, good football players.
How did we survive the 80s?
No, I don't know. I'd like to go back sometime. I think. But all right, a couple other good questions, and I want to get to the class of 2013. Any feedback from the new recruits about signing the 1 year? And Coach Danny Hope talked very clearly about why they went with the 1 year versus the 4 year, because it was still in process. But was that a big issue among kids this year in terms of that? And now that the other some schools did go to the 4-year LOI, I mean, has that been a big difference?
You know, be honest, when every one of these kids came through on an official visit, most of them came on an official visit, and with me, the time they spent with me, it was never brought up once.
Yeah.
To be honest, and so, in saying that it didn't seem like a big issue because they never brought it up.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was.
I like Danny's response to the question. I mean, it's not going to change.
And Purdue has not had a history of, I mean,
how
it's not
you
like we
get
do
or
that.
lose your scholarship's not going to change.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, now class in the great "What have you done for me lately?" Now we're the class of 2013. Well, Coach, we're not going to do that to you now. But what let's talk on the periphery first. Danny had talked about maybe 20, depending on that size, but. Has your geographic focus changed, and where are you right now? What are you doing? What's keeping you busy today for the class of 2013?
When I got here in April, in trying to piece together the coaches' travel for the spring recruiting, and really honing in on 2012 and trying. There was one commitment when I got here. In the meantime, I had a little bit of a staff gathering data from camps and combines, just the results, and so I took that and researched. So for the whole time being up until September 1st, August 1st, we could offer the seniors, but up until September 1st, when we could start contacting the juniors, we had done an amazing amount of work and had it ready to go. So we've been working on it day by day since then. So right now we put us in a really good spot as far as identifying, which is going to make the coaches' jobs a lot easier. Instead of just being handed a list of 1,000 kids in their area, it's going to be a little more defined for them. And then the ways we went and got the video and have the video uploaded. I mean, we've already done, and we had done some evaluations on sophomore film. The coaching staff has up until September. So we had already evaluated a good chunk of early kids as well. And we did some during the season, and it's putting us in a great position right now. But as far as areas go, we're going to concentrate in the areas we've been concentrating in. And we're also going to go, I call it San Diego to Boston and Washington to Miami. So we're going to cover the country, and we're going to know about. We want to know about every kid. There are players out there that we don't know that have some interest in Purdue, whether it be because of Drew Brees or whether it be because it's engineering or what have you. So it takes a little time, but I think the results, when you can get 4 or 5 guys in your signing class that maybe you wouldn't have gone after. And you look at the type of talents they were in academics as well. It's a well worth tool.
You're missing the Alaskan kids, though.
Yeah. University of Miami, there was an Alaska linebacker, starter.
Yeah.
But I think he had transferred after his second or third year to the States. But
well, I get off those Hawaiian kids, which and the Samoan kids. I mean,
right.
that there's some big, not only big but big time players. State of Indiana always gets asked, obviously, because that's where we sit. What kind of year is it in terms of what kind of talent level, in a broad stroke term, do you see for the class of 2013?
And even last year, I was surprised at the amount I had never been up here. I had recruited some players in the past. But I was surprised last year at the amount when it was all said and done. So the key is we're gonna blanket it. We're gonna turn over every rock, and there are a good amount of players here, and players with grades as well. So we're just gonna make sure that we whether it be articles or stats or we've been through just about all the schools, and we're going to continue to make sure we, here in Chicago, and very important for us. We want to make sure that we do our due diligence, our home state. We don't want to miss on any kids.
Yeah, Cheesy Beef keeps coming up with good questions here, but The Blind Side, the movie of Michael Oher, and obviously him growing up in areas that you're familiar with, certainly, and having been down in Memphis, but is that kind of how? I mean, is that are there kids like that out there? It's truly just a case of identifying them. I mean, not all of them are the size of Michael, but excuse me, I told you I was going to cough. But how big a part is that?
As far
I'll finish this interview.
This is the second week in a
is
row.
this? Are you talking about
I
as
know.
far as
get
his
choked up.
situation?
Yeah, in terms of what can you find a guy like that, and how
about
big
talent?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it
talent.
comes out of nowhere,
Yeah.
basically.
You know, there are. You know, there definitely are kids that develop late. They could be in areas that aren't highly recruited. It does happen all the time, and that's why you want to make sure, and especially in your home state or close to in the Chicagoland, especially you want to turn over every rock you can and try to get those kids down. And I think Ryan Kerrigan may have been one of them. I wasn't here, but
Yeah.
I think he had a Ball State offer.
Yeah.
You know, and he came to camp, and Coach had told me the story, but he came to camp and had a lineman's body and ran a linebacker's times, you know, and they
He's
did
really
move on.
good, that Kerrigan guy, too. I mean, you could
Right,
use
so
a few.
that would
you
be
could use a few of those
I
guys.
think that would be a great example.
All right, well, I'm going to take my drink. Stacy now gets under key grip status. Coach, thank you very much for joining us, and we may hit you up again because I think this process, there's a lot of questions, and everybody is interested in football recruiting, so we'll look forward to talking more, and also the spring game, a lot going on with that as well in terms of more players that'll be coming. You'll have a lot of guys coming to visit, I would assume, for that as well.
A lot of the signees will be coming in, and we have a junior day coming up on the 25th, and we're excited about that, and hopefully a bunch of the signees will come over for the spring game.
How many kids do you hope to have for junior day at this point?
You know, we don't know how many. We think will be a good day, though.
And last question now that I have my voice, and that is, what about, you sign a lot of kids early. Is that how you and the staff really wants to do it? I mean, do you want to have as many locked in early, or are you going to play it a little bit just depending on how it all plays out?
In a perfect world, you'd want to do that, but I think the end game is making sure that they're a fit here, and they're going to be successful academically as well as athletically. Be able to be good players and good students for us. And if it takes a short amount of time to get that done, it's great. If it doesn't, we're going to fight for them and make sure we get the right kid here to help us out.
Now we get starting to get all these good questions, and I want to ask one more question, and that is, we have somebody writing in and says, my cousin's son is an all-conference performer out of someplace in Illinois. How do I get information on him to the football staff? I mean, you do have people that contact you.
You know, the recruiting process can be difficult, especially for people that have never been around it before, but I would definitely say to look up and get email addresses. Email addresses and send in links, with the write-up is the easiest way to get that done. Sometimes we get all this mail, but the emails we check every morning. It's a little easier, and it's easier than loading the film and then having to cut it up and have the coaches watch it. I can just email it directly to a coach right there and then they can watch and evaluate, and we can get back through with email.
All right, there you go. All right. Coach, again, thanks again. We will take our 2-minute break. Gary Danielson on the line, hopefully waiting patiently, and we'll join him here in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned on Gold and Black Live.
One night, one team victorious. The story behind the score, the rivalries, the big plays, from the sidelines to you, on the air, online. Are you ready for the frenzy? Friday Night Frenzy, high school football from where you live.
Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts, League and Champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous, simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline, worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's, Purdue pride, a Purdue tradition, 17 game day locations.
West Point Steakhouse is a family-owned restaurant known for premium quality steaks. Open for dinner Thursday through Saturday. Stop by for the Thursday night prime rib special or Friday and Saturday night specials like pasta and seafood. Be sure to come and enjoy all the food and fun at West Point Steakhouse.
You can now get a quote or buy car insurance 24 hours a day. Call me, State Farm Agent Trent Johnson, at 743-9595 and see how much money you can save today.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
When you see it happen, report it. Send us your news stories, photos, and videos with our Report It feature. It's easy with WLFI.com and the WLFI smartphone app. With a few simple clicks, you can send videos and photos of breaking news coverage. See your submissions on air as part of our broadcast or online in the Report It gallery. WLFI.com. Always mobile, always connected.
Welcome back, Gold and Black Live, and waiting patiently, at least I hope he's still waiting patiently, Gary Danielson. And Gary, are you there?
I am.
Gary, thanks so much. And we like to have the trip.
No, don't worry about it.
Trains run on time, but we're running a little late. But Gary, first and foremost, congratulations. A big honor came your way. You've had many, but this I would think is high on your list to be to make the Purdue Athletics Hall of Fame announced yesterday, and be one of an 8-member class of the class of 2012.
Well, yes, thank you. It's a bit embarrassing and overwhelming at the same time, to tell you the truth. But on behalf of all the players in my class, I think I believe Dave Butts and Otis Armstrong from my freshman class were also inducted prior to me, and we had a great class. And it didn't turn out exactly the way we wanted it, and I don't mean this in any negative way. We all would like to have do-overs in life, and I think sometimes these dips in life, maybe things didn't turn out exactly the way we hoped, are great motivating factors as you move forward. And I can say I had a great experience at Purdue. My football career was not the best of it, but it sure, the lessons I learned and the teammates I played with and what I took from it really changed my life as I went forward and made me a much better football player in the long run and maybe a little more successful than I would have been if things might have been all roses. And I use the word roses because that's really was the goal when we went there to make it roses, and we didn't get to do that.
Yeah, but and of course Gary spoke at the Purdue kickoff luncheon this year and gave a very stirring speech, I thought, in terms of that message. And if things don't always turn out, you guys came pretty darn close to the Rose Bowl, and Otis Armstrong slip on the ice at that new AstroTurf thing in Michigan Stadium. You got a very good team in '72, just not enough breaks at the right time to get it done.
We did. I agree with that. We had 3 players drafted in the first round, 3 players drafted, I think, in the second or third round, right in there. I played against all of them many, many times after that. Dave Butts for his years in the Redskins, of course, Otis Armstrong, Darryl Stingley, my teammate. We were freshmen together. Number of matchups against my good friend Greg Bingham and his tremendous career, maybe one of the best professional linebackers I've ever seen. In fact, just as a side note, I think when Chuck Noll was asked to talk about some of the great players in the NFL that didn't receive a lot of notoriety, one of the guys he named and it was a very short list, was Greg Bingham. And yes, we would all like to have a do-over on a couple plays, but most of all, what I took away from the school to this day still is important to me. And that's living a life that people can depend on. Go to work, do your job, Don't worry about some of the things that you can't control, which when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, that stuff bothered me, but nowadays it doesn't. And I think it's a lot of the reasons why I was able to have a successful career in the NFL. And a lot of the things and a lot of the phrases that I use now in my broadcasting career are the same stuff that Dale Samuels, my quarterback coach, and Bob DeVos, our head coach, told me back when we were playing the days at Purdue.
Gary, Kyle here. Just obviously football has been a part of your life for forever now, being
Yes.
in the broadcasting business down there in the Southeast. Just you get to watch some pretty good football on Saturdays, right? And,
Yeah, we do.
and what do you
Mike,
make of this last season? I mean, obviously, two teams down there from the SEC did pretty well.
Well, Kyle, for whatever reasons, and this is just a snapshot in time, when I was making a decision on whether I wanted to stay at ABC and ESPN or make a move, the reason I thought the SEC made sense to me is I just was watching and following the change in the recruiting patterns for the 4 previous years, the amount of money that was being invested in the SEC and redoing their locker rooms and their stadiums, and the demographic shift for a lot of reasons in the Midwest had kind of driven a lot of great football players to play in the South, and you could almost see it breaking out. And I knew if I took the job, I predicted when I took the job that I would be part of 3 national championships in my sixth year doing it. I was wrong. It's actually now 6 for 6 since I made the change. They have leapt ahead. There's no doubt about that. However, I just look at it as the next stage. It's just like the first guy that broke the 4-minute mile. Nobody could do it until somebody did it, and then everybody adjusted. And I'm sure that the Big Ten and everybody else will start adjusting to what it's expected of you to win. And I think it's already starting to close that gap. And if we could ever get to a realistic playoff at the end of it, I think it would be much more. And in fact, I was way ahead of Delaney on this. I've been saying it for over 10 years that playoff games have to be played in the North as well as the South. And I've been saying that for years, and hopefully we can take one more step to have some of these great matchups happen in West Lafayette, but maybe a little bit more realistically in Columbus, Madison, or Ann Arbor in the near future.
Yeah, you look at that, and there's certainly the talk of the +1 or the games and the things that were talked about just this week make for a very interesting discussion. The trends are, like you said, I think out of the top, quote-unquote, Rivals.com top 150, I think 65 players still went to SEC schools, so things aren't going to change dramatically.
No, there's a lot of players. There's a lot of players down here. It's a little different. They're pro football down here, and in the South. But that's all right. They definitely have set the bar, and now I think you can see it already. The teams are starting to adjust. I really believe that last year's Wisconsin team would have matched up very well. Will they beat them? I don't know. But I think they could have matched up, and I think that's the next stage that these players are going to listen. When you put Drew Brees on the field, you got a chance to win any one of those games. I saw it in all those years when I did Purdue games as a broadcaster for ABC.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that. But Urban Meyer heading north makes for an interesting transition. Nobody's predicting him not to do well, if that's a double negative. But tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think it's going to be great for the league. I really do. And I think it's going to be a little harder on Urban than he realizes. I don't think he really understands that Columbus is really a pro town. The press is very tough. He had pretty good control over the press in Gainesville. And I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle he's going to have to understand is it's 24-hour talk there. It's professional beat writers. It's the evening news. It's a little bit different than he's used to. However, it's a destination university. And I think one of the great things that, I don't know if it was the athletic director Andy Geiger or Jim Tressel together, but it seems to me that Ohio State was maybe the first school in the Big Ten realized that playing some of these big, high-profile games early in the year, it was Ohio State who first played Texas early in the year and got those primetime games, and they seem to be recruiting nationally. Now, they have the entree to do that. I thought Michigan tried to stay too much like the 70s and the 80s, and it got them caught short-handed a bit. They seem to be changing in my mind, but just like I was listening to your interview before I got on, nowadays, because of the internet, it's just a much smaller world, and you have to recruit from coast to coast, from border to border if you're going to be successful, because kids want an opportunity to play, and they can read the depth chart in front of you. Just as an example, when I was being recruited to Purdue, I was the all-state quarterback in Michigan, and I wanted to go to Purdue because I thought I had an opportunity to follow up on Mike Phipps and get that starting job. We weren't eligible as freshmen, and get that starting job my sophomore year and maybe carry on that stuff that Greasy had done for 3 years and then Mike had done for 3 years. But there were other guys that did the same thing. Ted Golombeski, the all-state quarterback from Pennsylvania, was signed. Chuck Peeves, the all-state quarterback from New Jersey, a tremendous athlete, signed. Rick Sayers, all-state quarterback from South Bend, who was drafted in Major League Baseball, signed. And Tim Grackey, the most valuable player in the Chicago Catholic League, signed. We all played. All 5 of us played for Purdue in different positions. But it just shows you that kind of stuff does not happen today, and why you have to broaden your reach as you recruit players.
Yeah, and that was a talented class, and you didn't start. Chuck Peeves did. That's for the exactly first 5 games, I think, of 1970, and yet you did earn your way onto the field and then some. Talk about one of the great moments, and for every Purdue fan, probably the greatest moment of the last 30 years, and you were here to call it. The breeze to Seth Morales. Is that go down as one of your top 5 broadcast moments?
It actually is number 1, to tell you the truth. And I've done 2 national championships. I've done numerous LSU Florida games. I've done LSU Alabama games, and they're all brilliant games. I'm not knocking anything. Texas, Oklahoma matchups, Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, UCLA, and I have the privilege of announcing the Army-Navy game every year now. But that is my number 1 game. When Drew's legacy was on the line, and his opportunity to take Purdue to play in the Rose Bowl for the first time since Bob Greasy. He throws a late interception on a ball he was trying to throw out of bounds. Got hit just as he let it go. I'm not quite sure who intercepted it. Was
Mike Doss, I think.
Mike Doss is who it was. That's exactly right. And I think Drew was the guy who stoned him out of bounds to make the tackle. Came to the sidelines, and I watched him very carefully. He never unbuttoned his chin strap. He never looked at a receiver. He just kept staring out and came back in and won that game. It's one of the great plays I've ever seen. Actually, both of my number 1 and 2 games are both there. I was there for that 4th down play when Craig Krenzel hit the pass to win it for Ohio State the year before.
Don't bring that one up.
Yeah, so that was a brilliant play. I don't know if you recall that, but on that play, it was a perfect call by the Purdue defense. The safety and the linebacker actually collided into each other. Both of them were unblocked. Krenzel threw it off his wrong foot and made the touchdown play. It was an incredible play.
That in itself is, on both of those instances, is the essence of why college football is what it is.
Well, it's all football now. We're watching it in the NFL. Seeing Mario Manningham's play.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that ball, and that's really what you like about it. The high stakes of competition. If Manning throws that ball, he threw it off balance without setting his feet. If that ball gets picked off, he's the GOAT. But because he has enough guts to make that throw, and Manningham comes up the catch, he probably will go in the Hall of Fame. And that's what I love about it. I wish I had had a couple more throws at Purdue, but it is the way it is.
Yeah, but you're in that Hall of Fame here, and that will be. I assume you're going to be able to come on the 14th and bring family with you as well. So
I kiddingly said to Morgan when he wrote it, I said, "Damn, Morgan, I must have given a hell of a speech."
Yeah, you did. I thought it was very good. I was sitting with Purdue's starting running back Ralph Bolden, who ended up having an ACL injury late in the year, and you made an impact on him and in that audience, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Well,
So,
thank you. And on behalf of all my teammates, I just had breakfast with Rick Sayers, my dear friend, for years and years and years, and I told him, I said, Rick, I'm a little embarrassed about this because the five of us were on the same intramural basketball team, and we always won, and I was the only one who couldn't score out of those five guys, you know. And he was happy for me. But for our class, a class that kind of got caught in the middle, nothing against anybody. All the coaches tried hard. We all tried hard. But on behalf of our class, it's good to get a little notation that, you know, we would have liked to have done more, but we did the best we could.
all right. Well, Gary, thanks so much for your time, and we'll do this again. This is probably about the only time of year we can get you, but we'll look forward to also talking to you in April when you come to town. Gary, have a good rest of and I know you get to spend some of your winter at least in Florida, and that's a good thing. But it's been a pretty mild winter up here.
It's not a bad thing, but I have to say one of the great weather patterns in the world is right there in Indiana. I'm from Michigan. When I went there, I was like, we can play golf in March.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, see you guys later.
All right, thanks so much. All right, Kyle, thank you so much for a good show today, and of course thanks to Patsy and to Kim and to Gordon and mostly to Stacy, who brought me the water. That was a good thing. And also thank you to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, Follett's Pretty Bookstores, and of course West Point Steakhouse. We will be back next week. I think we're going to have Jerry Seasting on as one of our guests, and we'll round up a couple more and have another good show next week on Gold and Black Live.